As we move towards talking about Windows 10 deployments, it's important that we have an understanding of the Windows 10 editions. Now, you're going to find that Microsoft breaks their editions into different categories. You have home, you have business, and you have the education system. And then there's a couple other little offshoot editions, and there's even this thing called S mode that I'm going to talk about. So the reason why we have different editions is because of the different features that certain individuals need to take advantage of. People in a home environment don't necessarily need all the features that people in a business environment needs. And of course, Microsoft works with the education system and cuts the education system deals, so there's the education editions as well. So if you look here, you'll notice there's Home, Pro, Pro for Workstations, Enterprise, Enterprise LTSC, which is the long-term servicing channel. Essentially, it's able to push updates off for a longer period of time, but I'll talk about that later. You have Pro Education and then Education, okay? And the highest level products that you see there are the ones labeled Enterprise and the one that just says Education. You have the most features out of those. We're going to take a deeper look at some of these features as we go along here as well, but there's even a few, again, offshoot versions of Windows 10 that's not listed here. These are the main core additions that you're going to find out there in most environments. Now, if we take a deeper look, we're going to start with the Home Edition. And the Home Edition, you'll notice, comes with Cortana, which is Microsoft's AI. That's the artificial intelligence. It's like a little search engine, and you can work with Cortana on things and have Cortana search for things and add things to your calendar and schedule alarm clocks for you and all sorts of things that you can do there. And Cortana just it acts as an artificial intelligence for working with you on different things and searching for things. You have Edge web browser. Now, the Edge web browser is Microsoft's newer browser. It was put out to sort of replace Internet Explorer. They rewrote this browser from the ground up. There was no underlying Internet Explorer code, and of course, eventually they actually decided to go with Chromium, which is Google Chrome, as their web browser. So they've actually created a version of Edge now. The newest version of Edge is actually built in Chromium, which is based on Google Chrome. You have the tablet mode, which allows you to jump back and forth between desktop mode and tablet mode. This is especially helpful if you got a Surface tablet, touchscreen. You got Windows Hello, which is Microsoft's biometric technology. This will support things like facial recognition and other biometric technologies. You can receive updates and features directly from Microsoft, and some of those updates can be deferred to a certain extent. You have photos, mail, calendar, music, video. That's stuff we've always had. That's just the normal entertainment features that come with Windows 10. We have the Universal Windows Apps and Store. So this allows us to go to the Microsoft Store if we have a Microsoft account, and we can get free apps, we can purchase apps. It's just like any other app store, and it's cross-platform supported, which means we can jump between desktop, laptop, Surface tablet, and we can use our apps between those different platforms. Then you got Windows 10 Pro. Windows 10 Pro comes with more business-oriented features. So not only do we have all of the home-based features, but we've got these business-oriented features as well. We have Windows Autopilot. Windows Autopilot is going to allow us to control the deployment and installation features of a Windows 10 computer. Now, it doesn't actually deploy an image down to a Windows 10 computer, but it can provision an existing copy of Windows. So this allows companies to go and purchase a bunch of computers from somebody like Dell or an OEM, and those computers, as they arrive and get booted up on your network, they can actually talk to the cloud, determine that they're supposed to be configured by Autopilot, and Autopilot will configure what is known as the out-of-box experience, the OOBE, and then configure settings. And with the help of this thing called Intune, you can have all sorts of applications and software downloaded and installed on somebody's machine, as well as updates. So that does a lot. I'm going to talk a little bit more about that. You've got Windows Update for Business. This gives us more control over updates in our environment. You have Domain Join, which again lets you join a Microsoft Active Directory domain and take advantage of centralization. You have Azure AD Join. That's the cloud side of things, where you can link Windows 10 to the cloud and take advantage of those services. We have Group Policy Management for controlling restrictions and settings on people's machine. We also have BitLocker, which will encrypt our hard drives, our partitions. We have Hyper-V, which is hypervisor. This is Microsoft's virtualization product. This allows us to deploy VMs and install VMs on our machine. So you can actually install Hyper-V on your Windows 10 Pro computer, and you can run VMs, you can run virtual machines. And this is great for testing. This is also great if you needed to run some kind of an older legacy application. You could put a legacy operating system on there and do it through that Hyper-V if you needed to. And then lastly there, you've got Windows Store for Business. This is a private store that your company can set up related to the Microsoft Store, where they can purchase apps for their employees and they can make those available through the Windows Store for Business. And this is what Microsoft calls the modern deployment method of apps, and it's also known as self-service, meaning users can go to the store and download the apps that are available and install those apps. Normally, users cannot install applications on their computers, but if you make apps available through this store, the users can go and get those apps. Now, one thing I want to say too about that store immediately, though, is that it's not necessarily for us to sell things. We're not looking to sell apps in the store. We are purchasing apps for our employees, and those employees can go and download apps that have been made available to them. Now, in Windows 10 Enterprise, you get everything that Pro had, you get everything that Home had, and then you get some more advanced features. You get direct access, which is kind of like a VPN. It allows computers to establish a connection, whether they're on their own network or whether they're outside the network. They can determine which environment they're in, and they can establish a secure connection, remote access wise, to their company's network. We have the always-on VPN, which is similar to direct access. There's a few differences there we'll get more into, but the always-on VPN is also a VPN connection that can detect different situations that a computer is in. And believe it or not, always-on VPN is really sort of replacing direct access, but get more into that later. You have Windows to Go. Windows to Go allows me to install Windows 10 on a flash drive. So I can actually install Windows 10 on a flash drive and carry it around in my pocket, and I can plug it into a computer and boot off that flash drive, and I've got Windows 10 with me right there on that USB drive. I have App Locker, which is this is a feature that came out originally with Windows 7. It allows me to use group policies to control what applications that you're allowed to run on your computer. You have start screen through GPOs, so the start screen that Windows 10 has, you can completely control that using group policy objects if you've got Windows 10 Enterprise computers. You have Windows Defender App Control. This is sort of what is replacing App Locker as a newer way to deal with controlling apps that people can install, and you can actually do more with Defender App Control than you can App Locker. You have Application Guard, Windows Defender Application Guard. This makes it where applications can run in a containerized environment, which is a virtual container that is protected from malware penetrating it, as well as malware making its way out of this container. This is something that I'm not going to spend a lot of time on right now, but one thing I will say about Application Guard 2 is that it requires the Edge web browser. When you're browsing websites, you have to use Edge to open apps through the web, and it really polices that. So that's another feature that AppGuard has. And the Application Guard feature itself is a newer feature that's just come out over the last year or so. So then you have the AppV, Application Virtualization, and that feature is where you are installing an application, all of its files, into a single container known as a virtualization container. It's basically a file that contains all of your application files, and that file can be encrypted and protected, and it can control exactly who can run it, when they can run it, if they're allowed to run it offline. This feature's actually been around for a few years. This is not really a new feature, but it may be new to you. You may not have heard of it before. You have the user experience virtualization as well. This feature has been sort of replacing the concept of roaming profiles, if you know what that is. This allows users to jump between different Windows 10 machines and then be able to have all of their settings and things follow wherever they go. In other words, if I sit down at a Windows 10 computer and log on with my account and I set my application settings, Word and Excel, the way I like it, and configure things the way I want it, and then I go over to another Windows 10 computer with my same account, those settings can be over there with me as well. They'll follow me. So this is what they call this UEV, User Experience Virtualization, will do for me. Now lastly, we have what is called Windows 10 S Mode. S Mode was released to be a more secure version of Windows 10. It's actually a lighter weight version of Windows 10 because it's very restrictive. The S Mode is a Windows 10 mode that only allows apps that are installed through the App Store. So it's kind of like your smartphone, right? A lot of your smartphones, like an Apple smartphone, for example, will only let you install apps through the App Store, and so it's kind of like that. Android's a little bit looser on that end than Apple, but same kind of concept. Well, Microsoft released Windows 10 S Mode to do that same restriction, which is to control what apps get installed, and it makes it where you can only install apps through the App Store. You also have to use the Edge web browser. Okay. Now, originally when they released this, when you put your computer in that mode, you couldn't get out of it, and it made a lot of people mad. Eventually, Microsoft did release a way to get out of it. So if your Windows 10 computer is in S Mode, if you buy a computer that's automatically in S Mode for Windows 10, you can actually download an app that will turn off S Mode. It's kind of funny. Your S Mode is only going to allow you to download apps from the App Store, and you actually have to download an app that removes S Mode. Okay, so S Mode is a mode that Windows 10 can be put in, and some of the newer computers were being sold, and Surface tablets were being sold in that mode, but Microsoft did make it where you can get out of it, because a lot of people are still wanting to be able to run regular applications that they download, even though that is a security risk. Microsoft tried to force their hand on that, and I think eventually, with enough complaints, they made it where we could disable that if we want. Okay, so hopefully that gives everybody a better understanding of the different editions of Windows 10. I also wanted to add that you can very quickly tell what version of Windows 10, what edition of Windows 10 you have. All you have to do is come down here to this little search bar. This is the Cortana search bar, and type this command, WINVER, which is short for Win version, Windows version. So I'm going to click that, and as you can see, it's going to show me right here exactly what version I've got. Okay, so you can do that right now on any Windows 10 version edition, and it's going to tell you exactly what your edition number is, and that gives you an idea of what you've got. Now, if it just says Windows 10, it may just say Windows 10 Home, whatever. That's the version you got. As you can see here, I've got the Windows 10 Enterprise edition.